Hey everyone, it's Jen back with another Shutterfly video for you. I have the other two books that we're going to look at. So this is my Los Angeles to Boston, October 2005 book, and then the Polaroid book that I mentioned in my previous video, the one that I did about Yellowstone. If you're a new viewer, I also did a Shutterfly, a video talking about my Yellowstone Shutterfly book. I'll put a link below so you'll be able to see it. Alright, so first thing, and I set up my overhead camera as well, so hopefully this will be a little easier manipulating items. And I think this just about fits there. So I lived in Los Angeles for about 8 years, up until October 2005. Then I returned to Boston, and at the time I was keeping like a blog or, online journal, and so I had been posting about my trip while I was traveling. And at my only camera at the time was a T-Mobile Sidekick, so almost every photo in here was taken on a T-Mobile. There's a couple, well, there's a few that weren't. So the ones on the cover here, this one was taken with the T-Mobile Sidekick. That's a photo of me. I think this picture of my dog Louise was actually taken with, I want to say a Palm Trio 755P. I'm not sure about the photo of the car I was driving at the time. I had a Volkswagen Beetle, so I had this loaded up with stuff that I took. It was loaded to the brim with boxes, and driving I-70 through Colorado in the mountains was really, really fun with this car completely loaded down, I can tell you that. And then what I did with this book, just to kind of, for me, like if I don't have pictures of my own that detail what story I'm trying to tell with the book, I just go online and find photos. So all these kind of like signs are not photos that I took. I just grabbed them online and then put them on the cover of this book. But these three photos down here are mine. And then what I did as well is I took a map, Google map, and I just traced my route from Los Angeles to Boston. Actually, I don't have the whole route on here, but I have part of the route. So I think the rest of it is hidden by the photos. But so this is what I did, is I was living in Los Angeles, and I didn't just go straight across. Like if I'm going, you expect someone going to the East Coast from LA is just pretty much gonna go this way. But I knew that it would be a long time before I came back, and that I wouldn't get an opportunity to go to Yosemite National Park, which is someplace I had really wanted to visit. And in the 7 years I lived in LA, I just never got up there. So what I did was I drove from LA up to Fresno, and then up to, I think it's in here, this is the area in here that is Yosemite. And then I basically drove like up and around, and I took US 50, so for much of the way back I took US 50, which goes through Nevada and Utah, and then sort of travels like into the middle of the country. So this is the basics of the route that I initially started to follow, that you can see right along there. So it's just like a nice little way to like fill out the Shutterfly books, is if you don't have enough photos or the right photos, or photos that are of the right sort of resolution that you can use. And as you can imagine, a T-Mobile Sidekick is not the greatest camera. So, so let's go ahead and take a look at these. And I've just covered up a few items that are like just personal. Obviously, I'm not going to share them on YouTube. So, but this just tells you a little bit about here. So this is like my initial, like here, I grabbed another map of the kind of area I lived in. So, and then posted about, like this basically tells you about the book. So I put On September 14th, 2005, I made a post on LiveJournal musing about moving back to Boston. After more than 8 years in Los Angeles, it was time for a change. And then basically, within like a couple of weeks, I made the decision to just go. So this is like the neighborhood I lived in LA. And I lived in a bunch of different places in Los Angeles. Mostly, actually, I lived in the San Fernando Valley and like North Hollywood and Studio City area. But then eventually I moved kind of closer to work, and I worked downtown. So this is the apartment building I used to live in. And then this is my dog Louise, and she's died several years ago, but she was the dog I had at the time. This is 2005. She's a little pit bull mix. And then this is the car I was driving, a little VW Bug. So, here we go. So, we can just take these out of there. Okay, so what I did when I put this book together, and this is, I mentioned in my previous video, I've actually done this book like, I think this is my third time creating this book. The first time it was like a rectangular shape, and I don't know, it was just much more haphazard. And then I basically just changed the layout a bunch of times. And honestly, like, I'm almost tempted to go back and do it again, because I just find all of these really huge fonts to be a little obnoxious, but it's okay. So this is the house, this is the apartment building I lived in, and actually, like, this is a picture I took off of Google Street Map, and it was, like, it didn't really look like this when I lived there. I don't remember, like, these hedges being there. I think there was a fence or something like that. And this is the apartment I lived in right there. It looks like it, at the time that the Google car went past, the Google Maps car went past, it looks like it was for rent. If I remember correctly, there were like maybe 20 units in this whole building. It's actually, it was a pretty cute building. Every single unit was a studio apartment, and they were all dog friendly. So almost everyone who lived in there had a dog. But there were all kinds of like landlord issues and craziness going on there, and it's like very much in the hood. So this is a picture of Louise that I took with my Sidekick camera. And then this is just a bunch of boxes that I'm like trying to pack on literally the day that I was planning on leaving. So on October 5th, 2005, that was the day I was planning on taking off. And I still had all these boxes to pack. And so I wrote here, still so much to do, and Louise doesn't seem to appreciate my packing skills. And you can see behind Louise, like you might be able to see behind her, that there's actually like a whole pile of stuff behind her as well. So I really didn't think, I lived in a studio apartment. I had pared down from like a 2-bedroom house that I had lived in prior to moving here. So I was surprised at how much stuff I still had. And this was after having sent a bunch of stuff back to Boston. So this is literally all of the stuff that I was supposed to pack in the vehicle in a little VW Bug to take with me. So here, just one of my posts, I either posted it on LiveJournal or on a blog. So I wrote, I started packing the car last night, and 4 hours later gave up in defeat and disgust. At 6 a.m. this morning, I went to FedEx and shipped another 120 pounds back to Boston. This means that I can now get everything in the car as long as I don't mind not being able to see out the back window, and as long as Louise doesn't mind her cramped front seat. So where I lived, the nearest FedEx office, the office that I went to at 6 o'clock in the morning, was open all night long. It was a 24/7 FedEx. And I have no idea what it cost me to ship 120 pounds worth of stuff back to Boston in 2012. I'm sorry, 2005. I'm looking at this, and Okay, I'm like completely wrong when I was telling you here. So on October 5th, 2005, this is me packing, and then October 12th, this is the day I was actually leaving. So I might as well have just left all of this stuff in the apartment or thrown it in the trash, because most of it was like books and stuff like that, because when all of this stuff got back to Boston before me, and I shipped it to my parents' house, and my mother and my sister were on vacation that week that I was traveling. And so my dad was the only one home. So when FedEx comes by the house, he has them put all of my boxes on the back porch but then he never brings them inside the house. And it rains like multiple days in a row. So literally everything in those boxes was soaked. He like eventually put a tarp over them, but it's like, why didn't you just bring the boxes in the house? So all of the money I spent on that 120 pounds, I would have been better off just saving it or like burning it in a fire or something, because every single item in all of those boxes was just pretty much destroyed, mildewed and moldy. So I ended up throwing it all away. Okay, so October 13th. So after I left the FedEx office at 6 o'clock in the morning, I basically went back to the house, packed the dog into the car, and I left. And then I drove straight to Fresno, and I pretty much drove all day long. And so I got to Fresno. I don't know what time I get to Fresno, but the next morning, this morning I went into the Motel 6 office in Fresno to get change for the vending machine. The manager had a special running. 3/4 for $1, he says to me. How about 5/4 for $1? That was my counter offer. He said, that's no benefit to me at all. So what I did here is, of course, I didn't have a photo of Motel 6. Why would you take a photo of one? So I just went online and I did a Motel 6 photo as a backdrop on that. And then here, so on October 13th, I went straight from the Motel 6 in Fresno to Yosemite. And the first place you come into in Yosemite is the Mariposa Grove of giant sequoias. And so I wrote here, these pictures are both from the T-Mobile. Almost all the other pictures in this book will be from the Sidekick, which honestly, is not bad. They're not bad. I have some Polaroid images in here as well, but these pictures are definitely from the Sidekick. So I wrote in here, I am finally in Yosemite. I left Fresno at midday after yet another visit to FedEx. Just one box shipped this time, and now I can see out the car window. It's only today that I feel I'm really on a jaunt. Yesterday it felt like I was fleeing. Amazing what a decent night's sleep in a real bed and a really long shower will do for the soul. And then these are some photos I took of in Yosemite. So these two here were definitely taken with the Sidekick. That's Louise kind of surveying her landscape. And then I know this one was definitely taken with a Polaroid. Actually, it was taken with the Holga with the Polaroid back. And I'm not sure about these two. I can't remember, but it might have been as well, because I did have color and black and white film for the Polaroid, but I mean, I would have had to burn through 10 photos before I could switch to another one, so I almost think that they actually might have been done with the T-Mobile, which is kind of amazing if you think about it. Like, that's actually a pretty decent photo. And then there's the Holga one. And then the other photo here. This one looks like more like a T-Mobile one. Or Sidekick. I don't know why I keep calling it T-Mobile. That's the cell company. The camera's a Sidekick. So I don't know about this one though. All right, so while I was taking photos, I saw this couple here, and this guy, I think he's Marine Corps, and then the lady all dressed up, and people were taking pictures of them with their camera. They asked me to take their photo, and then I asked them if I could take their photo with my camera, so I took a picture of them. It says, just married. I have no idea who these people are, but they just got married and were driving through Yosemite to take photos of themselves. They asked me to take their picture with their camera, so I asked them if I could take a photo of them with mine as well. Apparently mine was not the first request. They probably could have made a bundle by charging a modeling fee. And then there was a very short visit to Yosemite. So next day I went to Carson City, October 14th. I'm in a restaurant in Carson City smoking. I love Nevada, but it's a terrible place to be a waitress. So at the time, I actually smoked cigarettes. And of course, coming from California, you pretty much not smoke anywhere indoors. But back in 2005, Nevada, you could pretty much smoke anywhere indoors at that time. So I could literally, like I remember sitting at this restaurant, and it was like a diner. And I was sitting at a counter smoking a cigarette and drinking tea and, waiting for breakfast. So today I'm driving the loneliest road, US 50, to Ely, Nevada, 350 miles from here and 58 miles from Great Basin National Park, as close as I can get and find a place to stay with Louise. This is the view outside my motel, and we're off. So that's the view outside my motel, nothing special. I just took that picture to document where I was before heading to Great Basin National Park. And then on the way on US 50, there's really not a lot to see, especially in the Nevada portion, but there are these petroglyphs called Grimes Point petroglyphs on US 50 near Fallon, Nevada. So I stopped there and took some photos. There we go. And then this map, I grabbed this map from somewhere just to show you the road, the loneliest road through Nevada. So this is Fallon. This is the Grimes Point. Grimes Point is where those petroglyphs are, and then actually further down the road, there's more. In Hickson Petroglyph Recreation Area. And then this is where I stopped for the night in Ely, so I could go to Great Basin National Park. So I did all of my visits to parks and stuff back then were just very, very brief. I don't think I was at Great Basin more than 3 or 4 hours. So I write here, somewhere on US 50, cows was my subject line. This afternoon I took some time to let Louise run around off leash. She bounded back and forth through the grass while I made my way towards 2 cows standing just beyond a barbed wire fence to take some photos, never dreaming that little Miss Scaredy Dog would decide she needed to investigate this new creature up close. As she went dashing through the fence, I nearly had a heart attack. I called, "Louise, Louise!" And she stopped, turned around, and looked at me before leaping off towards departing cows again. After yelling her name about 3 more times, she finally came back to me, but she would not stop staring intently at her new best friends. Here she is staring, so probably hard to see from that height. So there's a picture of Louise kind of staring off into the distance at the cows. And then on the road into so this here, it's like a tree full of shoes. I don't know if you can see it that well. There's tons of shoes in this tree, and this is on US 50. And then this here, I believe, was on the road into Great Basin itself, so just kind of along here somewhere. Okay, and then October 15th. Today I stopped at Great Basin National Park and went on the ranger tour of Lehman Caves. I'm attaching a pic of the interior, which you should be able to dimly make out. There's only so much you can do with the sidekick. There were other things to see at Great Basin, but for some reason I was starting to feel pressed for time, so I made it a short afternoon in favor of getting on the road. I think I was just eager for a little bit of civilization. US 50 is rather lonely. And now that I've had prime rib and Dairy Queen for dinner, I'm making a run of it on the freeway tonight, heading for Arches and Canyonlands National Parks in Utah. So this is the photo there. And then you can see I did another drop of like a map behind everything, and it goes from, I think it actually, yeah, so this starts here at Lehman Caves and then travels along up to Green River. All right, and then actually let me grab a pen. Sorry, so you can see this a little bit better. So here, Green River, another like maybe 20 or 30 miles up the road, you get on 191, and then you go down here to Moab. So Moab is right here. And this is actually not that far from where I live now. So when I was coming across this way, like here's Green River, and then just a little bay way down Green River, there's a road that goes down this way. That's the road that goes to Lake Powell. So it might even be this one here. Actually it is, yes. So where I am now is down here. So there's Hanksville, there's a little town, and then you just keep going. Keep going and you get to Lake Powell. So, okay, so let's see, here's my next entry. I made it into Green River, Utah last night, about 60 miles from Arches and Canyonlands. Last night's drive was no doubt the most scenic part of my trip so far, and sadly I could take no pics because moonlight is not enough ambient light. Utah is truly astounding. Tonight I'm staying in Moab, the happening little town near the parks. I need a break from hours of driving. That seems like the right place to take it. And now I jump into the shower so I can get on the road and get down to Arches. So this was on October 16th. And you know, it's interesting, like when I was here at Moab in 2005, there was not much there. It is like so built up nowadays compared to when I visited in 2005. Like I can't remember what hotel I stayed at when I was there. I don't know if I stay here at all. I thought I had a page that said where I stayed, but I mean, it was probably someplace cheap, like a Motel 6, because it had to be someplace I was able to take the dog. And I think most of this trip I tended to stay at Motel 6s. And the motel I stayed at in Moab was like, there was nothing surrounding it. And yet, when I go to Moab nowadays, like the Motel 6 there is like completely surrounded by all kinds of other stuff and shops and other hotels and everything else. So it's very different. So these pictures, most of these were taken with the sidekick. Actually, no. Some of them were taken with the sidekick. Some of them were taken with the Polaroid. And honestly, I don't know which ones are which at this point. I'm going to say this like dark one was done with the Polaroid. And like these type of ones were done with the sidekick. But who knows? Like this one, I'm actually anything with the vignette, it was definitely the Polaroid. So this one's a Polaroid, this one's a Polaroid. But the rest of them I might have chopped off the vignette, so who knows? So it's pretty cool. These are all from Arches. And I mean, I haven't even been back to Arches since this trip, but I'm planning on going. Like I'll go sometime this winter. I'm actually going to Moab next week, but it's for business, so I'm not gonna have time. But I'm gonna go. I think once they reopen the government, I'm gonna go because I can't deal with filthy bathrooms. So, and then I did like I think I got this map. So the map behind this is like of the area as well. I don't know where I pulled it from, but you can see like Moab down there. Could have actually been a Park Service map. Alright, let's see. So after my day of exploring, so on October 16th, these are all photos I took that day. And then for dinner time, I'm at an internet cafe pizzeria in Moab eating delicious pizza. I've been on the road for 5 days already, but it doesn't seem like I left LA that long ago. I've been traveling nonstop until today. Wednesday I drove to Fresno on the fumes of my energy. Thursday I spent all day in Yosemite, but it wasn't nearly enough time. The drive through Nevada on Friday was grueling. I thought my mind was going to disintegrate. It was mile after mile of open range. I have never been so bored in my life, and boredom while driving leads to fatigue. I was miserable. I was so miserable. Then, when I woke up Saturday morning, my sinuses were a total mess. I could feel the swelling. With the exception of today, I've had to take Advil every single day since leaving Los Angeles. Today is much better. I really wish I had even more time for this trip rather than being forced to do one-day drive-bys in the parks. I'm already prepared to move to Moab. I could live here at least for a few months. I would love to spend at least a few more days here, and if I hadn't spent so much of my traveling money on repairing the car, I would just go ahead and do it. Best drives so far have been at night. Highway 395 in California going into Nevada, a great road. Tons of switchbacks through the mountains, but all of them with reasonable curves, so I averaged 80 miles per hour. Last night on I-70 through Utah was just gorgeous as well. I wish I'd been able to make that drive during the day. I hit 100 miles per hour several times in Nevada on US 50, but I could do without the speed thrill on such a boring road. It was actually difficult to keep my speed even remotely reasonable because the road is so flat and empty, but I didn't want to push the car any higher than 100 with it being so laden down with baggage. In 5 days, I have not seen a single state trooper, knock on wood. I did not get any tickets on this trip. Talk about money I spent on repairing the car. Actually, I don't remember what was wrong with the car, but I probably, if before I do a big cross-country road trip, I always take the car in to get looked at, so who knows what they found. So between that money on repairing the car and money on shipping 120 pounds worth of goods back to Boston for no reason at all, this trip was pretty much rushed. However, on October 17th, I said, screw it. I'm staying a second night in Moab. Today's view from the motel. So this is what the view from the motel was when I stayed there. I can guarantee the view looks nothing like that today. There'll be a bunch of buildings from the view from the motel. And then just little things like this, all of these embellishments are all on Shutterfly itself. And then I went to Canyonlands. The island in the Sky District of Canyonlands is only 33 miles from Arches, and yet the landscape could not be more different. On the drive there, the Martian red rock gave way to grasslands, shrubs, and small trees. I forgot to charge the sidekick last night and lost power 10 minutes after entering the park. These photos were taken with my whole Garoid. So I explained in my other video, and I'll talk about it a bit more when I talk about this other book. I had a Polaroid back for my Holga camera. Holga is a medium format, sort of like plastic camera. It's really cheap. takes kind of crappy photos that are also interesting at the same time, and I really liked using the Polaroid back with it for instant gratification. So these photos here were all taken with the Polaroid film. I really like this picture. That actually is one of my favorites. Okay, and then after leaving Canyonlands, I went to Denver. So here, and here's Louise. So I was parked in the parking lot of Glenwood Hot Springs, which is in the town of Glenwood. And I think, is it on here? I don't see it. It's like much closer to, I don't know, it's on 70, so it's off like this way somewhere. But so I went to the Hot Springs Resort, and they have like this huge Olympic-sized swimming pool. I went swimming there, and I get out of there. I was just like feeling super tired, and I just needed to like lie down for like at least a couple of minutes and like close my eyes. So I told you I had like tons of boxes in the car. And so Louise was sitting in the front passenger seat, and like she had to sit in the seat. She couldn't even get down into the footwell because I had boxes down there. So I kind of pushed her out of the way so I could lie across, which wasn't even comfortable, like a Volkswagen Beetle. Like I think there was like a console in the middle and everything, or whatever. So it was like very uncomfortable. But so when I crawled across, she crawled up onto the dashboard. She's very cute. So I just put these cute little quotes like, "Mama stole my seat to take a nap, so now I'm stuck on this dashboard. This kind of thing shouldn't happen to a dog." And then I put, "Louise, I really can't see the road. Also, you can't steer from up there." So that's Louise evicted from her passenger seat. She's really cute. And then on October 19th, I am stuck in Denver. Miserable. Yesterday, I went to Glenwood Hot Springs to swim in their pool. It was great fun, but turned out to be a mistake. My back was twinging a bit last night. This morning, I woke up in full spasm. I've never gone from a slight twinge to full spasm in less than 8 hours before. Usually it takes a few days. The heat must have completely inflamed the area. I usually take a very cold shower after taking the waters, but even the showers at Glenwood came from the spring, so I didn't have the opportunity to cool down my back until many hours later, and by then it was too late. This isn't the sort of thing that goes away with a few days rest, so I Googled like mad for a chiropractor and found one who sounded like he'd be pretty good. When I called, he said he was probably too far away for me to drive in so much pain, so he referred me to someone a bit closer. Jackpot. I can't believe how much better I feel just from one treatment. The guy was totally amazing, and he also gave me names of chiropractor he knows along my entire route home, including one in Boston. I should be hitting the road again tomorrow. So, and I wish to God I had like written that guy's name down. I never did. Very stupid of me, because it would have been nice to know who that was. So, October 21st, haunted house. This is a brick Victorian in Abilene, Kansas. I was going to pay the monstrous $10 for the tour, but sadly they closed up early to prepare for the Halloween tour, and I didn't have 6 hours to sit around waiting when I could spend that time driving, so I'm currently in Kansas City. My back is feeling a bit better, so I'm hoping to make it halfway across Missouri tonight, though I'm tempted to stop in time to catch Threshold and Numbers. So back in 2005, I'll tell you a little bit about me. I was a complete cheapskate. And I thought $10 was a lot of money to pay to tour a house. Nowadays, I would probably pay $30 to tour a house without even thinking about it. So this was on October 21st. So they set up these this Victorian house. They used to do house tours, and then at Halloween time they do special like haunted house type tours. And these photos were taken with the Polaroid film, as was this one. So October 22nd, at the Cracker Barrel restaurant just outside of Louisville, Kentucky, I believe, right? Yesterday, I drove a little over 500 miles and made it into St. Louis around 11 p.m. I can make good time when I want to. I'm headed for Virginia tonight, but likely won't make it that far. Too many stops today and one detour to St. Meinrad's Arch Abbey in Indiana. I've just figured out that I'm only 50 miles from Yosemite, Thomas Merton's Abbey, but unfortunately it is completely in the opposite direction from where I'm headed. If I'd realized how close I was going to be earlier, I would have planned my day a bit better, but the pilgrimage is going to have to wait until another time. The pilgrimage to Yosemite Abbey is still waiting for another time. I've driven kind of in that general area since then, but I still haven't made it there. Thomas Merton was a Cistercian monk, and he's one of my favorite writers. His autobiography, 7 Story Mountain, really great book. So I've always wanted to go and see the abbey where he lived, but I still haven't managed to do that. And I was 50 miles away in 2005. And then October 23rd, I'm in Baltimore. I knew I was almost home when I saw my first Dunkin' Donuts. I inaugurated my arrival on the East Coast by having 2 of them. French crullers, of course. So tasty. French cruller is my favorite Dunkin' Donuts. And I had no photos, of course, because there's no reason for me to take photos of the highway or Dunkin' Donuts. But I wanted to have a photo, so I just put this, grabbed this off the internet and put this in the background in my book for the blog post. And this next page is a picture of my house, which I don't want all over the internet. So we'll go like that. And then this is more pictures down here. Okay, so this just explains a little bit more about the book. So I wrote here, when I took this road trip, I had 2 cameras, my T-Mobile Sidekick, which was brand new at the time, and still one of my favorite phones, and a Holga with a Polaroid back. It's tough putting together a photo book with such low-resolution photos. Google Maps were a big help. They work well for background images. This particular iteration of this book is a revised version of the first one, which I did in an 8.5 by 11 inch size. But after having created that book and a 10 by 10 size for my Yellowstone family trip album, I figured out that I really prefer the 8 by 8 size books with the matte cover. I also had a lot of typos in the first book, which were driving me crazy. Hopefully I've caught them all this time. So this was done, I wrote this 11/24/2016, so that's when I recreated this book. And I guess this is my second iteration and not third then, so. And then that is pretty much that. So, and my battery's about to die, so the next book will actually have to be in a third video instead of doing it right now. But have a great and peaceful day or evening, whatever it might be.